A skibidi toilet in every home, meme-conomics, and a world run by shallow narcissists who collapse at the first sign of adversity. Gen Alpha is gonna take over the world one day, and humanity is absolutely cooked. The world is changing, and that rate of change is only increasing. Humanity's ability to wield ever greater levels of power is accelerating faster than we're evolving as a species, and Gen Alpha is at the forefront of this change. Out of all the generations to come before them, they stand out as the most unique so far, and that could spell disaster. Jokes aside, let's acknowledge the fact that every generation loves to trash talk the younger generations. There's been multiple studies done on this phenomenon, but you only need to look at the historical record. There's a famous quote often misattributed to Socrates that criticizes the younger generation. It complains about how children of today love luxury, have bad manners, and contempt for authority, amongst other complaints. While there's no evidence Socrates ever complained about unruly kids, it turns out similar sentiments go way back, long before his time. Around 2000 BC, a Sumerian teacher chiseled their frustrations into a clay tablet. The ancient boomer wrote about how their students were behaving. The youth are disrespectful, do not listen to their elders, and rebel against authority. What's funny is that today's teachers are leaving their own clay tablets behind, but some in the form of digital posts, comments, and tweets. But their complaints have some serious validity, as we'll soon see. Let's talk about screen time, because while Gen Z grew up alongside technology, Gen Alpha is the first generation in human history to have direct access to the internet from the earliest days of childhood. According to national studies, in 2010 the average age at which a child would first engage with the internet was between 8 and 10 years old. Today, however, that average age has dropped to as low as 4 years old. Doomer boomers would have you believe that increased screen time at an early age is a surefire sign of the future collapse of authority. Back in their day, if you wanted to watch moving pictures, you had to walk uphill to a movie theater and then fight off a T-Rex to get a good seat. In reality, children today are being exposed to technology at an earlier age due to the prevalence of educational apps and content online, with many schools using online programs to supplement learning. This is a good thing, and YouTube, for instance, has a large number of educational channels for Gen A to enjoy, learning while being entertained. But the boomers aren't completely wrong either, because YouTube is also a seething cesspool of barely moderated content. You're only one bad search away from educational content of an entirely different sort. During the infamous Elsa Gate years of YouTube, the platform did a massive sweep for content that was being covertly marketed for young viewers, but featured extremely questionable or outright inappropriate content for them. It wasn't until collective parental outrage hit a boiling point that YouTube finally decided to act. Why? Because the dirty little secret our corporate daddy doesn't like to talk about is that they were raking in the cash from all those sweet, sweet clicks. It's not just YouTube though, because younger children are flocking toward apps like TikTok and Instagram, and they are not doing it for the educational content. It might seem like harmless browsing, but the truth is far from it. Consuming social media at a voracious rate is having some serious effects on Gen Alpha, with significant consequences for all of us. Social media addiction is a multi-headed hydra of straight-up awful, and there's multiple heads to tackle here. First, Gen Alpha is showing an alarming trend to socially isolate. Educators around the country are reporting that Gen Alpha would rather sit on their phones than socialize with classmates. And that's not just casual observation either. A poll conducted by C.S. Mott Children's Hospital revealed that 1 in 5 parents of children aged 6 to 12 reported their kids having no friends or not enough friends. 90% of responders reported that their child had expressed a desire to make more friends. The factors varied, with 21% of parents saying that their child was too shy or socially awkward, while 16% said there was no place where children could spend time together and socialize. That is actually a worse problem than you think, because over the last 20 years, federal and state programs that financed after-school activities have seen dramatic budget cuts. Parents today are working more hours than ever just to make ends meet. The single-income, stay-at-home parent lifestyle that many grew up with in the boomer era has become little more than a nostalgic myth. Not only are parents today both having to work, but many are having to pick up a second part-time job or a side gig that leaves them with less time to take their kids to after-school activities where they might have a chance to socialize. And that's not the only way capitalism is ruining children. Sports programs used to be the glue that held communities together, especially lower-income communities. However, budgets for publicly funded sports programs for children are being slashed. But not to worry, because the free market has stepped in to save the day. or ruin it depending on which end of the profit margin you're on, private equity has stepped in to create after-school programs in many communities. While they claim they aim to make sports more accessible to everyone, every single word that comes out of a capitalist's mouth is a lie meant to steal your money. Private equity has only one goal: maximize profits, and that's exactly what they're doing. By 2026, it's expected that privately run sports programs will be pulling in almost $78 billion a year in America alone. And they're not doing it by offering discount rates to make sure all children everywhere have a chance to enjoy sports. Instead, private sports programs are jacking up the costs of everything from uniforms to registration fees. This has led to a dramatic drop in sports program enrollment among low-income children, with kids from lower-income households now 6 times less likely to participate than those from upper-class families. Once, playing basketball for the school team was an opportunity open to all, a level playing field where only talent mattered. But capitalism fixed that by ensuring it's now mostly reserved for the kids who can afford it. A lack of access to after-school and sports programs means that more and more Gen Alpha is turning to electronic entertainment instead, and this is tanking their social skills. In 2019, JAMA Pediatrics released a study on 27 girls and 20 boys aged 3 to 5. They discovered via MRI scans the children with more screen time show significantly less developed white matter in their brain, the region responsible for cognitive and linguistic skills. This is problematic because aged 1 to 5 is when the brain develops most rapidly. These findings are backed by a U.S. government report conducted between 2020 and 2023. It revealed that amongst 13-year-olds, that latest crop had the lowest math and reading scores seen in decades. Another study showed that 65% of kids aged 9 to 10 were having trouble with skills like reading. Further, Gen Alpha is displaying an alarming trend toward greatly shortened attention spans that, according to educators worldwide, make them harder to teach. These trends all come down to social media and the instant gratification it provides. Flashy animations, snappy videos, and the ability to instantly skip anything boring have trained Gen Alpha's brains to crave constant stimulation and to demand it at an increasingly faster pace. Being completely overwhelmed by options has decreased their attention span, and fascination with instant gratification has produced a generation rife with anxiety and other behavioral disorders. Even before COVID-19 sent global anxiety levels soaring, Gen Alpha was already grappling with a 50% increase in rates of anxiety and depression between 2010 and 2019. In the years just before the pandemic, from 2016 to 2019, approximately 9% of children aged 3 to 17 were diagnosed with anxiety. The answer is directly linked to the phones in Gen Alpha's hands and their voracious consumption of social media. In fact, the impact of social media on Gen Alpha is so bad that many psychologists are warning of a generation of narcissists with global repercussions. Social media is toxic. It's not exactly a new or a particularly exciting discovery, and yet, despite knowing this, humanity engages with it at a bewildering rate. At the start of October 2024, 5.2 billion people used social media. That is just under 64% of the entire population of the Earth. An average of 250 million people join social media every day, and the average duration of social media use per day is over 2 hours. Gen Alpha, however, is the first generation to be raised suckling on the teat of social media influencers. That's right, humanity is going to soon be led by an entire generation raised by Logan and Jake Paul, Mr. Beast, Hawk Tuah, and others. In just a decade or two, reality will consist of nothing but endless skibbity toilet memes and crypto scams at this rate. It's not just that Gen Alpha has terrible and dubious role models and online personalities, it's that social media itself creates an unhealthy sense of comparison in its consumers. It used to be that children learned about the world by reading, watching TV, and talking to parents or other adults. But most of Gen Alpha's primary tool for exploring the world is the phone in their pocket. The entire perception of what the world is about relies on social media, and this has caused a cascading effect of anxiety and depressive disorders. And if you're one of our Gen Z viewers watching this, we don't need to tell you about an explosion in anxiety and depression. Gen Z was the first generation to experience this abnormal growth in these disorders, once more linked to their consumption of social media at a younger and younger age. It's not just about being anxious and depressed because you can't afford the latest trend. Social media is skewing the very way Gen Alpha understands the world. It's no surprise to anyone that social media is a breeding ground for conspiracy theories and misinformation, while joking about round earthers, because obviously we all know the Earth is flat and the moon is duct-taped to a firmament above our heads. It is decidedly less funny when disinformation starts having serious societal and national effects. We've seen it in a resurgence of diseases once near the brink of extinction, all thanks to the explosion in anti-vaxxer movements fueled by social media pushing disinformation. But disinformation can also have serious national and deadly repercussions. Social media has been used by bad actors to spread misinformation or outright propaganda on a global scale, with very real effects for people trying to just live their daily lives. Gen Alpha, having grown up on social media, is more primed to fall prey to these misinformation campaigns than ever before. Then there's the combination of all these factors we've covered with one very critical evolutionary quirk Gen Alpha has been divorced from for the first time in human history. It's called FaceTime. And no, we're not talking about the app. We're talking about real face-to-face time. Sociologists have been ringing the alarm bell over Gen Alpha after witnessing alarming trends in Gen Z. Humans, like other primates, rely on social cues to learn their place in a group and how to navigate interpersonal relationships. However, as screen time increases, there is growing concern Gen Alpha is lacking this critical period of development. Witnessing a face on computer or a phone screen simply doesn't have the same effect on our tiny little monkey brains as seeing a real face in close contact. Sociologists warn that Gen Alpha is likely to experience higher rates of negative social behaviors and difficulty navigating complex social situations, such as that of the workplace. These issues are compounded by the way Gen Alpha is being trained to handle societal interactions, once more thanks to social media. It's a trend that began with Gen Z, an increase in narcissism and extremist tendencies or ideologies. In the wake of social media, new generations have experienced a global resurgence in extremist views, ranging from religion to politics and racism. Sexism has also seen a dramatic resurgence in Western nations, fueled by social media personalities like Andrew Tate, who sell a curated male fantasy to disenfranchised men. Instead of encouraging personal accountability for their own shortcomings, these figures promote the idea that women, minorities, and other marginalized groups are to blame for their struggles. But that all starts with simple interpersonal interactions on social media. And this is where Gen Alpha is being trained to adopt increasingly toxic behaviors. Social media combines the convenience of watching content from around the world with being able to adopt a digital persona. This anonymity emboldens the worst behavior in people, leading them to treat others on social media in ways they would never consider face-to-face, for the fear of either social or physical repercussions. When you act stupid towards someone in the real world, you either have to face the social consequence of being shunned for your behavior or the physical consequence of swallowing your own teeth. But social media liberates people from consequences altogether, and this has trained people in terrible interpersonal conflict resolution techniques. Social media also favors fast, snappy, and simple solutions to problems. While most situations and people are complex, social media trains the brain to take the simplest approach. We see this in the complete lack of empathy from people quick to jump on the blame train anytime there's a new social media outrage. For example, there have been numerous incidents where women were targeted for being Karens because the video clip of them on social media failed to document the entire interaction. Commenters quickly jumped on the bandwagon to mock or threaten these people, sometimes with real-world consequences for the victim. There's no room for nuance in social media, only fast, snap, stupid judgments without knowing all the facts. This, combined with the ease of engaging in bullying behavior online, is contributing to a surge in narcissistic tendencies among Gen Alpha. Educators and sociologists are increasingly warning that this generation is showing a troubling lack of empathy toward others. Here's some of the comments we've collected from real teachers on the matter. They're sometimes like the comments section in real life, and a bunch of kids who love to dish it out to their peers but can't handle it one bit when it's returned. Or how about this? They're missing an empathy chip. The absolute cruelty they show toward one another is appalling. These are not cherry-picked comments. You can find similar ones being made by educators around the world, and the comments come in droves. It's clear that a perpetually online social media meme culture is creating significant behavioral problems in an entire generation. The worst part is that these children often face little to no serious repercussions for their behavior. This fosters the belief that the world operates just like it does in memes, without accountability. And for the rest of us, it raises an unsettling possibility that, under their watch, it someday might. So, is there any hope for Gen Alpha? Well, there's been numerous negative predictions made about previous generations. Notably, in the 60s and early 70s, there was a growing societal concern that the new hippie anti-war generation would lead to the collapse of society. Yet, a decided moral panic and conservative bias was largely to blame for those negative predictions, which have been proven to be untrue. This time, it's different, though, because the data is universal, and the tool that is responsible for the dramatic change in Gen Alpha is ubiquitous to modern life. The internet is accessible to more people on more devices than ever before, and it's only set to grow from here until things like wearable technology make an online life truly perpetual. The hippies of the 60s and 70s eventually left college and found jobs, joining the ranks of the real world. But Gen Alpha also faces a reality where job security is a thing of the past. Wall Street may be reaching record highs, and the world may have more wealth than ever before, but the average person sees less and less of that prosperity with each passing day. Things like homeownership, once an expected and staple future of the American middle class, are disappearing, along with the middle class itself. Numerous studies have shown that millennials and Gen Z overwhelmingly struggle to afford homeownership. Seizing on this trend, private equity firms have stepped in to purchase homes on the market, turning them into rental properties and maximizing profit. Even when you can't afford to give your money to capitalism, it finds a way to take it from you anyway. Then there's the rise of AI and the seismic effect it'll have on the job market across every industry. While previous generations could outgrow their struggles, Gen Alpha is trapped in a perpetual online lifestyle. They're growing up to inherit a world they can't afford to live in, with no certainty of securing a job that could make it possible. There's a recipe for global disaster because from New York to Beijing, the phenomenon encompasses every developed nation in the world. How do you think Gen Alpha will shape the future? Let us know in the comments. Hit like and subscribe to join the conversation. Now go check out why brain rot will doom Gen Alpha, or click this other video instead.